Have you ever wondered if reading spiritual books is helping or distracting you? Have you ever felt overwhelmed by scriptures, theories, and teachings, yet still felt lost on your spiritual path? Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm honored to be with you today to explore a question that stirs much debate among seekers. Does reading really matter on the path of spiritual growth? Or are words just more noise, more ego food, more distraction from the real work of waking up? In today's video, we are going to unpack this topic with both depth and clarity. We'll look at ancient wisdom, modern misunderstanding, and the subtle difference between reading for truth and reading for pride. We'll explore when reading serves you and when it may actually slow you down. Most importantly, we'll rediscover the original purpose of the written word in spiritual traditions. So, let me begin with a challenge. What if the very books you hold sacred were never meant to give you answers but to awaken your questions? Let's start by facing a common illusion, the belief that reading is the same as knowing. We live in a time when information is everywhere. You can read 10 articles before breakfast, binge audiobooks during your commute, and finish entire scriptures in a month. But let me ask you this. Has reading ever transformed you in the silence of your being? Has a passage ever cracked your heart open not with logic, but with presence? That is the difference. Reading to know about truth is not the same as realizing truth. One is accumulation. The other is embodiment. There's a famous Zen saying, "Don't mistake the finger pointing to the moon for the moon itself." Words are fingers. They point, they guide, they reflect, but they are not the experience. Imagine you're reading about love. You could study poems, definitions, psychological theories. But until your chest burns with longing or joy, you haven't really known love. The same applies to awakening. You can memorize spiritual terminology. You can debate karma, emptiness, mindfulness, non-duality. But until you have sat with your suffering and met it with open awareness, those words are just echoes. So does that mean we should abandon reading? Absolutely not. But we must understand how to read. The Buddha never told people not to learn. But he warned about clinging to doctrine. He said, "My teachings are like a raft to cross the river. Once you've crossed, don't carry the raft on your back." That's what many of us do. We collect rafts, we compare rafts, we argue over rafts. But we forget to cross the river. So what is the role of reading on the spiritual path? It's to remind you not of something new, but of what you already know deep down. Real spiritual texts don't fill you up, they empty you, they strip away illusion. They leave you warned quiet. When you read a passage and it feels like a mirror, that's sacred reading. When a verse doesn't give you answers but leaves you in holy confusion, that's where growth begins. But let's be honest, many read to feel superior, to seem wise, to gather spiritual vocabulary. This is the trap of the ego, dressed in robes of wisdom. The ego doesn't mind your spiritual journey as long as it gets to be in charge. It will happily read 1,000 books, as long as it never has to surrender. And that's why sometimes, putting the book down is the most spiritual act you can do. So what's the right approach? Read slowly. Read reverently. Read not with your mind, but with your being. Don't rush to finish. Linger. Sit with one sentence for a day. Here's an example. Take this line from the Tao Te Ching. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Don't analyze it. Sit with it. Feel the mud in your own life. The restlessness, the striving. Then breathe. Let the stillness come. That is reading as meditation. Let me tell you a story. There was once a monk who had read every sutra, recited every teaching, but his heart remained closed. One day he met a wandering teacher who asked him, "What is the sound of your own heart beating?" The monk was silent. He realized he had read every answer except his own. He wept. And from that day, he read less but listened more. He said later, "I used to read to escape myself. Now read to return home." That is the shift. But now, let's talk about those who say, "I don't need to read at all. Everything I need is within." Yes and no. The truth is within you, but the path is often hidden beneath layers of delusion. Reading can awaken what you've forgotten. Think of it like this. You're in a dark room. You feel lost. Someone hands you a candle. That's what a good book does. It doesn't show you a new room, it helps you see where you already are. But if you stare only at the candle and never look around, you remain trapped. Books can light the way, but only you can walk the path. Let's also acknowledge that some teachings only unlock when you're ready. You may read the same passage 100 times. One day when your heart is ripe, it breaks you open. That's why it's not about volume. It's about presence. I've met people who've read thousands of pages and remain arrogant, restless, spiritually numb. And I've met others who've read one poem, one sentence, and live with radical peace. It's not the amount, it's the depth. And here's a secret. Sometimes books confuse us on purpose. Yes, true spiritual texts are meant to disrupt your patterns. They're not linear. They're circular, they contradict, they awaken paradox. Why? Because truth is not black and white. It's mystery, it's silence, it's surrender. You can't grasp it. You can only be it. So when a teaching frustrates you, pause. It's doing its job. Don't try to solve it. Let it work you. Let it open new pathways in your mind. Let it soften your certainties. That is the sacred function of the written word, not to inform, but to transform. Let's now ask, what kind of books should we read? There is no perfect answer. But here are some signs you're reading something worth your time. It makes you pause. It makes you feel, not just think. It makes you question your identity. It brings you back to the present moment. It humbles you. It feels like a friend, not a god. Some days that might be a scripture. Other days a poem, a journal, a story. Whatever reminds you of who you truly are, that is sacred text. Even the breeze can be scripture, if you know how to read it. Even silence, if you dare to listen. So let's not argue about books. Let's use them wisely. Let them be companions, not cages. Let them point, not possess. Let them whisper, not shout. Let them vanish when your heart has heard the message. Because at the end of the day, the most important book is the one written by your life. Your tears, your choices, your fears, your courage. Every breath is a sentence. Every act of love is a verse. Every moment of awareness is a sacred chapter. So read your life. Be the kind of person whose presence is its own teaching. And then, whether you read one book or 1,000, it won't matter. Because you will have become the truth the books were pointing to all along. Thank you so much for watching this video. If this message resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Do you find reading helpful or distracting on your spiritual path? What books have changed your life? And when have you chosen to stop reading and simply be? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's walking the path with you. Together, we are not just collecting knowledge, we are remembering truth. See you in the next video.